What's up, guys? Happy Sunday evening. Welcome back to another installment of Mr. Eric Reads. I hope that your weekend was great. But as we go into summertime, every day is kind of like the weekend. And so hopefully you're staying safe and you're being kind and you're having fun. I hope that you're also reading, obviously, hence why I'm doing this, and that you're continuing to use your brain and make some critical thinking, some outside the box thinking, to really practice working your brain and giving it a good workout so that it gets even more intelligent, so that when you come back from summer break, you guys are just blowing us away with how much you know. Today's book is by William Steig and it's called Brave Irene. So without further ado, let's find out what Irene did exactly to be brave and what she had to overcome. Here on Mr. Eric Reads. Miss Bobbin, the dressmaker, was tired and had a bad headache, but she still managed to sew the last stitches in the gown that she was making. "It's the most beautiful dress in the whole world," said her daughter Irene. "The Duchess will love it." "It is nice, dear," her mother admitted, "but Dumpling, it's for tonight's ball, and I don't have the strength to bring it. I feel sick." "Poor Mama," said Irene. "I can get it there." No, Cupcake, I can't let you," said Miss Bobbin. "Such a huge package, and it's such a long way to the palace. Besides, it's starting to snow." "But I love the snow," Irene insisted. So she coaxed her mother into bed, covered her with 2 quilts, and added a blanket for her feet, of course. Then she fixed her some tea with lemon and honey and put some more wood in the stove. With great care, Irene took the splendid gown down from the dummy and packed it in a big box with plenty of tissue paper. "Dress warmly, Pudding," her mother called in a weak voice. And don't forget to button up. It's cold out there. It's cold and windy." Irene put on her fleece-lined boots, her red hat and muffler, her heavy coat, and her mittens. She kissed her mother's hot forehead 6 times, and then, once again, then she made sure that she tucked her in snugly and slipped out the big box, shutting the door firmly behind her. It was really cold outside. I mean, very cold. The wind whirled around the falling snowflakes about. They were this way, they went that way, and into Irene's squinting face. She set out on an uphill path to Farmer Bennett's sheep pasture. By the time she got there, the snow was up to her ankles, and the wind was worse. It hurried her along and made her stumble. Irene resented this. The box was a problem enough. "Easy does it," she cautioned the wind, leaning back hard against it. By the middle of the pasture, the flakes were falling thicker. Now the wind drove Irene along so rudely, she had to hop, skip, and go helter-skeltering all of the knobby ground. Cold snow sifted into her boots and chilled her feet. She pushed out her lip and hurried on. This was an important errand. When she reached the apple road, the wind decided to put on a show. It ripped branches from the trees and flung them about, swept them and scattered the fallen snow, got in front of Irene to keep her from moving ahead. Irene turned around and pressed on backwards. "Go home," the wind squalled. "Irene, go home." "I will do no such thing," Irene snapped. "No such thing, you wicked wind." "Go home," the wind yodeled. "Go home, go home," it shrieked, "or else." For a short second, Irene wondered if she shouldn't heed the wind's warning. But no, the gown had to get to the Duchess. The wind wrestled her to the package. It wallowed it, it twisted it, it shook it, it snatched it, but Irene wouldn't yield. "It's my mother's work," she screamed. Then, oh, whoa, the box was wrenched from her mittened grasp and sent bumbling along the snow. Irene went after it. She pounced and took hold, but the ill-tempered wind ripped the box open. The ball gown flounced out and went waltzing through the powdered air with tissue paper attendants. Irene clung to an empty box and watched the beautiful gown disappear. How could anything so terribly wrong be allowed to happen, she thought. Tears froze on her lashes. Her dear mother's hard work, all those days of measuring, cutting, pinning, and stitching, for this? And the poor Duchess. Irene decided that she would have to trudge on with just a box and explain everything in person. She went shuffling through the snow. Whoops. Sorry, guys. Being demonstrative can have its downsides, I guess. There we go. That's fine. She went shuffling through the snow. Would her mother understand? She wondered. It was the wind's fault. It wasn't hers. Would the Duchess be angry? The wind was howling like a wild animal. Suddenly, Irene stepped in a hole, fell over with a twisted ankle. She blamed it on the wind. "Keep quiet," she scolded. "You've done enough damage already. You've spoiled everything, everything." The wind swallowed up her words. She sat in the snow in great pain, afraid she wouldn't be able to go on, but she managed to get to her feet and start moving. It hurt. Home, where she longed to be, where she and her mother could be warm together, was now far behind her. It's got to be closer to the palace, she thought. But where any place was in all this snow, she couldn't be quite sure. She plowed on, dragging furrows with her sore foot. The short winter day was almost done. Am I still going the right way, she wondered. There was no one around to advise her. Whoever else was in this snow-covered world so far, far away was probably safe indoors. Even the animals were in their burrows. So she went plodding on. Soon night took over. She knew that in that dark, muffled snow, she could feel it still falling. She was cold and alone in the middle of nowhere. Irene was lost. She had to keep moving. She was hoping she'd come to a house, any house at all, and be taken in. She badly needed to be in someone's arms. The snow was above her knees now. She shoved her way through it, clutching the empty box. She was asking how long a small person could keep up the struggle. When she realized it was getting lighter, there was a soft glow coming from somewhere below her. She waded toward the glow, and soon she was gazing down a long slope at a brightly lit mansion. It had to be the palace, she thought. So Irene pushed forward with all her strength, and slosh, thump! She plunged downward and was buried in the snow. She had fallen off a little cliff. Now only her hat and the box in her hands stuck out above the snow. Even if she could call for help, no one would hear her. Her body shook. Her teeth clattered. Oh, why not freeze to death, she thought, and just let all the troubles end? Why not? She was already buried in the snow. But never see her mother's face again? Her good mother, who smelled like fresh-baked bread. In an explosion of fury, she flung her body around to free herself, and she was finally able to climb out on her knees and look around. How do I get to that glittering palace, she thought. As soon as she raised the question, she had the answer. She laid the box down and climbed aboard, and it pressed into the snow and stuck. She tried again, but this time, instead of climbing on, she leapt, and the box shot forward like a sled. The wind raced after Irene, but it couldn't keep up. In a moment, she would be with people again, inside where it was warm. The sled slowed and jerked to a stop on paving stones. The time had come to break the bad news to the Duchess. With an empty box clasped to her chest, Irene strode nervously towards the palace. But then her feet stopped moving, and her mouth fell open. She just stared. Maybe this was impossible, yet there it was, a little way off, over on the right, hugging a tree, was the beautiful ball gown that her mother made. The wind was just holding it there. "Mama!" Irene shouted. "Mama, I found it!" She managed somehow, despite the wind's meddling, to get the gown off the tree and back in the box. And in another moment she was at the door of the palace, and she knocked twice, dum dum, with the big brass knocker. The door opened, and she burst inside. She was welcomed by cheering servants and a delirious duchess. They couldn't believe she'd come over the mountain in such a storm all by herself. She had to tell them the whole story in every detail, so she did. Then she asked to be taken right back to her sick mother, but it was out of the question, they said. The road that ran around the mountain wouldn't be cleared till the morning. "Don't fret, child," said one of the servants. The duchess said, "Your mother is surely sleeping now. We'll get you there first thing in the morning." Irene was given a good dinner as she sat by the fire, the moisture steaming off her clothes. The duchess, meanwhile, got into her freshly ironed gown before the guests began arriving in their sleighs. What a wonderful ball it was. The duchess in her new gown was like a bright star in the sky. Irene, in her ordinary dress, was radiant. She was swept up into dances by the handsome aristocrats who kept her off her feet to spare her hurt ankle. Her mother would enjoy hearing all about this. Early in the next morning, when the snow had long ceased falling, Miss Babin woke from a good night's sleep feeling much improved. She hurried about and got a fire going in the cold stove. Then she went to look in on Irene, but Irene's bed was empty. She ran to the window and gazed at the white landscape. No one was out there. Some snow powder fell off the branch of a tree. "Where is my child?" Miss Bobbin cried. She whipped on her coat to go out and find her. When she pulled the door open, a wall of drift faced her. But peering over it, she could see a horse-drawn sleigh hastening up the path. And seated on that sleigh, between two large footmen, was Irene herself, asleep, but smiling. Would you like to hear the rest? Well, there was a bearded doctor in the back of the sleigh, and the Duchess had sent Irene's mother a ginger cake with some white icing, some oranges and a pineapple, and a spice candy of many flavors, along with a note saying how much she cherished her gown, and what a brave and loving person Irene was. Which, of course, Miss Babin already knew. She knew that better than the Duchess, of course. The end. That was Brave Irene by William Steig here on Mr. Eric Reads. Hope you had a wonderful Sunday, guys. Get some rest, stay safe, wash your hands, and be kind to everybody you meet. See you guys around.